Demon Turf is the latest in the indie 3D platformer genre that has given us amazing gems like A Hat in Time and mediocre outings like Yooka-Laylee. It's out on the 4th of November on all platforms for the lovely price of $24.99, but where does it fit on the spectrum of 3D platformers? And most importantly, should you spend your time and money on it? Well, that's what I'm here to answer. I'm going to break it down into presentation, gameplay, and then finally talk about what you should expect if you want to 100% the game, so sit back and enjoy my review of Demon Turf on PS5. I've been following the development of this game for over a year now, and of course the first thing that will catch your eye is the visual presentation. I fecking love it. Character models are rendered in 2D on 3D levels, and at first I thought it would be an issue with platforming accuracy, but it never felt like that. Instead, you're left with one of the most unique visual presentations I have ever seen. The overall colour palette is darker than I would like in my platformers, but it's called Demon Turf, so it does make sense. Even though the palette is quite dark, there is a nice variety in worlds, making each one stand out on their own. The dark worlds of the high-rise buildings or the desert contrast well with the bright pirate and snowy levels. The animations are where it really shines. Everyone has very distinct frames, and I could say nothing other than it's absolutely phenomenal. Just look at the animation on this power up. I found myself admiring pretty much every single animation in the game. The same goes with the music. While the only standout that I can replay in my head is the main theme, the rest of the music mixed perfectly with the atmosphere of the levels, further reinforcing the great presentation of the game. For me, presentation is one of the biggest factors in a platformer's success. You can have great mechanics and level design, but without an iconic presentation, then the game will quickly be forgotten about. Luckily, Demon Turf absolutely knocks this out of the park. Now, the gameplay. If this is slightly off, then the game can feel mediocre. I'm looking at you, Yooka-Laylee. Anyway, the team at Fabras understands what makes a platformer tick. From the get-go, Beebs feels amazing to control. Triple jumps, glides, backflips, the basics of her control is phenomenal, and the simple act of jumping from one platform to the next is satisfying. It did take a bit to get used to though, as hover ability is bound to L2 rather than hold X, but once you get used to it, the things you can pull off are amazing, and I haven't even mentioned the abilities. You unlock these after beating bosses. There's a grapple hook, a rolling ability that allows you to pick up an insane amount of speed, a flying ability, and a slow down time ability. All of these have their own use that are fully explored in their respective worlds. The game does a great job at introducing these slowly and eventually forcing you to combo them together to create some grueling platforming challenges. Having a fun character control is half the battle, and playing it simple they succeeded. I was finding all sorts of shortcuts, pulling off crazy tricks, so I can't wait to see what speedrunners do with this. None of this would be any use though without good level design. And at first I was torn on it. So each level has 3 cakes to find, and at the end you're rewarded with a battery. However, with only 3 collectibles in the level with no coins or anything else, they felt quite empty. The beginning levels had little challenge, so all I could think about was how the game could have benefited from another collectible like gems in Spyro. However, once the difficulty ramped up, it was clear that platforming was the focus rather than collecting, and the challenge was so fun that I forgot about the lack of collectibles. Once you beat the worlds, however, you can replay the levels all again, and they're completely changed. And instead of 3 cakes, you have to find 50 lollipops, and these were done so well. I would recommend you do these at the end because the difficulty ramps up quite a bit. The most interesting part of Demon Turf is a mechanic that allows you to place 3 checkpoints across the level. Should I go on and save my checkpoint for a harder platforming section, or should I place them down and potentially be left with none nearing the end of the level? Now at the start I forgot to place checkpoints just because I had no muscle memory for it, and I did get annoyed by it, but once I remembered I started to love this mechanic, especially in the level before the final boss where I was left with no checkpoints but had to complete nearly half of the level without dying. The levels have a mix of platforming and light combat sections, and the combat is the worst part of the game. In Spyro and Mario, the combat is easy but quick. However, in Demon Turf, you don't actually deal damage to enemies. Instead, you have to push enemies off cliffs or into spikes, and to get any real movement on them, you have to charge up a punch or charge a grappling hook. Meaning there is a lot of downtime, and I would go as far to say that I hated it. And this leaks into the boss fights. The fights themselves aren't bad, it's just they go on for so long. Some boss fights took upwards of 15 minutes because there was so much downtime while charging up your fists. Now, luckily combat isn't too common, and the platforming was so good that it rarely detracted from my experience. I have to commend the developers on the difficulty though. There was a constant increase leading up to the final boss, and it never felt like it spiked in any area. The game started to kick my arse near the end, but it only forced me to get good, and I loved every second of learning different tricks. There was some customization with mods and character colours. The majority of the mods were pretty useless, each one takes up a certain amount of slots, so you're limited in what you can choose. As for completion, I haven't got the platinum, nor do I think I will, because there was a lot of content here. There are 4 worlds, so as I said before, you have to beat each level twice to get 2 batteries, collect 3 pieces of cake, and 50 lollipops in each level. You then have to complete a time trial in both versions of the level, and on top of this there are extras like taking specific photos in different levels, a combat gauntlet, and secret arcade levels, the first of which is a direct copy of Bowser's level in Mario 64. I put 10 hours into the game so far, and I'm nowhere near 100%, so there's plenty of content here for your completionists out there. Demon Turf is an absolute must-play for any 3D platformer fan. Now, it's quite challenging, so I would bear that in mind. What the team over at Fabris have created is nothing short of phenomenal, and it's going into my top 5 of the year for sure. 3D platformers are arguably my favourite genre, so I love when great ones release. Anyways, apologies if this seems rushed, because it is. I'm finishing the script 2 hours before embargo, so let's hope I can get it out on time. I really appreciate you watching. I would love to know what you think of Demon Turf, and if you're going to buy it, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next video.